Welcome to the NBAV podcast. Welcome back to NBAV, the NBA Avenue podcast, with the fourth episode of our Summer League series, going one by one through every NBA team, focusing on all the prospects that played for their Summer League team, who has a chance to make it in the NBA in the future, and also ranking them against all the other prospects that we've already talked about and seeing who the best Summer League prospects are in the entire league. So the Cavaliers, not a great team in Summer League, not very good. They blew out the one game where they faced off against the Milwaukee Bucks, who we covered in our last episode. The Bucks, perhaps the worst team in Summer League, a true embarrassment. So the Cavaliers destroyed them, which shows you just how bad the Bucks were, because the Cavaliers weren't a particularly great Summer League team themselves. At the beginning of Summer League, if you had to compare the Cavaliers to anything, it's kind of like we've all had this happen to us. It's like where you're playing on a team and your team is so bad, but you kind of have that one guy who has a lot of talent, and he sort of keeps the other team from completely embarrassing you. Like, they can't totally disrespect you because you have this one guy on your team, and that's Imani Bates. Bates is a guy who has talent, but he doesn't have enough talent. He doesn't have enough motor. He's good. He has bounce, but he doesn't have enough bounce. He's good at shooting, but he's not good enough at shooting. He's just got everything. He kind of doesn't have that one mentality or that one characteristic that just shoots off the charts that's enough to tie the whole thing together. He's pretty good at everything, and he's altogether not good enough to really make an impact in the NBA. But he's basically the best player on this team that you have. So that's sort of what the Cleveland Cavaliers are. Is they're a Summer League team that has one respectable guy who makes the entire rest of the team, worth something. Now, as you start to go deeper into Summer League and he plays a little bit less and then he doesn't play at all in the final game, a few other characters start to emerge, and you think, oh, okay, maybe we actually have something on this team. So let's first go alphabetically. Let's talk about every single player, those who we even remember, and then at the end, we'll rank them, and we will then rank them up against the players who we discussed previously, and we had some good players on the Celtics and some good players on the Knicks that are going to be players who we can do the rankings against. So let's start off. We have Imani Bates, alphabetically. He's the first at the top of the list. We already mentioned him. Darius Brown, the second, or Darius Brown Jr., he's a guard who, very small, 6'2". He's 24 years old, and he reminds me a lot, very much Fred VanVleet kind of vibes. It's almost like if you took Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry and you combine them into one player. Because he's kind of a little bit thicker, more like Kyle Lowry, but he has kind of a little bit more passing and playmaking to his game, a little bit maybe more like VanVleet. He's a little bit more respectable, classic player like VanVleet, but he has that kind of look a little bit more like Kyle Lowry in terms of body type. So it's kind of a combination of those two guys, which is interesting because they both won a finals game they won a championship together on the Toronto Raptors. And he kind of reminded me of those two guys in different ways. He has a very interesting touch on his shot, and he's very confident in his shot. And he can hit it from really anywhere. If you're late in the shot clock, and this is why Lowry and VanVleet are good comparisons for him because of the height, the position, and then also if it's late in the shot clock, those guys can hoist it up, and you can never really be too surprised when it goes in. And it goes in pure for Darius Brown. He has a strange type of spin on his shot, and it just goes in. Then you have DJ Burns Jr. He really is, in my opinion, not worthwhile of making a Summer League roster even. He's a guy who is built like a refrigerator, and he's just so humongous, and he has some touch. He has that Zach Randolph style of play, but he's just too big and not tall enough. Too big in terms of width, not tall enough. and he needs to lose a ton of weight and become much quicker, more fleet-footed. I understand he has touch and he can go dominate the playgrounds and he can be the best player in any park game, but he really has no shot and is probably a waste of an opportunity to have him on your summer league roster. Then you have Hunter Couture. This is a 6'3" guard. There's no secrets to his game. It's very simple. He is a guard who is going to go out there and he's looking to shoot the three ball, and he's good at it. He has a shot where most of the time it ends in a swish. He's that classic guy, potentially a Max Strus replacement down the road, a guy who could step in and flame throw some open three-pointers, which is a useful skill to have in today's NBA. Then you have Dexter Dennis, not a guy who did very much in Summer League. Javon Graves, another guy who didn't do very much. And then you have Pete Nance, who had a bright spot in one game against the Los Angeles Lakers. Altogether, if I had to say, he is kind of the worst version of Larry Nance. And the Nance name recognition is probably what got him this far. I mean, he's okay. He's fine. He is Larry Nance, basically fast forward a decade into the future, and he has a little bit more of a three ball because that's what all these guys have coming into the NBA now. So he has a little bit more of that than Larry Nance. But altogether, I wouldn't say he's as good as Larry Nance. So will he make it? He'll probably get some NBA playing time at some point. Then you have Gabe Asabioin. I don't know how to pronounce that name. I don't think he played very much in Summer League. Then you have Craig Porter Jr., 6'2" point guard. A lot of really small guards on this Cleveland team, which they kind of are notorious for. If you think back to K Felder, I mean, this is a team, Donovan Mitchell. I mean, they have a lot of small guards on this team. They had, did they have Kemba for a period? They have a lot of small guards on this Cleveland team. So Craig Porter Jr. is a guy who has talent. I just don't think he has enough talent. He's good, but he's just not that good. He'll hit the open three-pointer. He'll drive a little bit, but he can't drive too well, and he's not like a great three-point shooter, and he's not great with a hand in his face, but he's okay. He's fine. He'll play in the G League, and he'll be part of a team. Then you have Zaire Smith, the guard, and he's really just a guy who right now he's 25 years old. It's just good to see him on the court because when he came into the league, he had this incredible potential when he was drafted. He was drafted in the first-round pick, the 16th overall pick in the draft by Phoenix, and he just had some horrible stomach infection. I don't know what happened to him, and it's just good to see that he's back out there and able to play basketball, and he still has his bounce. He showed it a couple of times. Didn't do very much, but it's just good to see him out there playing basketball. At a certain point, it's less about is he going to live up to the hype and more about is he okay? And it's good to see that he's okay. Then you have Naquan Tomlin. He's sort of your token long, raw, bouncy guy who it's yet to be determined if he's going to put it all together or if he's going to peter out over the next couple of years. But he's a rookie. He's 23, and he didn't get drafted, and he's going to have a shot to prove himself. And you see, in a year from now, is he going to come back and be a better player? Then you have one of the more interesting players for this Cavalier team. That's Luke Travers. He is what I would say is a real throwback type of player. He's a guy who does everything strong. He rebounds strong. When he puts the ball in and dunks it, it's strong. He is good around the hoop. He really likes going left, and then he also has a good reverse going right. So there's sort of no real way to completely stop him. He's a fundamental player, a good outlet passer. There's a lot to like about Luke Travers, and he's a guy who, like I said, is a throwback, especially because he has a mullet. And he has all of these good skills. He could shoot the three a little bit. He doesn't do it too much. But all around, this is a guy who doesn't need the ball that much and is a net positive. He sort of was just in the middle of everything that went right for this team. And then the final player going alphabetically is Jalen Tyson. He's their first-round selection, the 20th overall pick. He's a guy who's good, and it's hard to see just how good he is. He certainly is not a complete and total bust at the 20th pick. You're not a lottery pick. You're 5 picks after the lottery. And if you go through history of how many 20th picks really make it that far in the NBA, probably most of them don't make it, don't have great careers, and probably some of them do. But he's a guy he's good. He can definitely go into the G League and play pretty well, be the best or second best player on a G League team. Question is he going to make it for real in the actual NBA? That's the question. He's sort of, if I had to compare him to someone, I would say he reminds me a little bit of Nemhard because he doesn't do anything incredibly that pops off the charts, but he's an all around good player. So I suppose if you do look at it that way and you say he's sort of like a Nemhard type, but he has more size than Nemhard, that would bode pretty well for him. So there, Tyson can take a little bit of solace in his comparison to a completely random NBA player and say, hey, well, look, we really don't know what he's going to become ultimately, but he, at the very least, it's not like he went into Summer League and was a total bust. When Imani Bates was not on the floor, it was clear that this was Jalen Tyson's team. If you look at the thumbnails on YouTube for their highlight videos, it's all going to show, after Bates is gone, it's going to show Jalen Tyson. So at least he has something to his name, something to look forward to. You're going to want to see him play well in the G League. And if he does, then that's going to be promising for the Cleveland Cavaliers. If not, well, he's just a 20th pick overall in the draft, and it's really up to him whether he's going to make something of himself or not from here out. So, now that we've gone through everything, at the top of this entire team, I think you really have to put Imani Bates up there. You have to say he's the best guy. It's true. He is the best guy. He has the gravity about him. The defense considers him the best player on the team total. Then if you want to go second, you probably got to go Jalen Tyson there. You probably have to. And if you want to go third, who's the third best guy on this Cleveland Cavaliers team? You're going to have to go Luke Travers. Those are the top three guys on the team in totality. Those are the top three. From there, you're certainly going to cross DJ Burns off the list. He really should not have been there. And then from there, you are going to have still a couple of guys who are at least worth mentioning. We'll take Zaire Smith out of there. He didn't really do anything. We're just happy to see him on the court. We're going to take Naquan Tomlin out of there. He is the raw guy who we don't yet know what he's going to be. And I guess for the fourth, we're going to put Darius Brown Jr. there. Then we'll put Hunter Couture for his three-point shooting ability. We'll have Pete Nance in the mix, and then Craig Porter Jr. at the bottom out of all of those guys. So in the end, what you have right there is you have Imani Bates, Jalen Tyson, Luke Travers, Darius Brown Jr., Hunter Couture, Pete Nance, Craig Porter Jr. It's not a bad haul considering what we've looked at on other teams. If you compare them to Milwaukee, and I know Milwaukee is a really bad G League team, Milwaukee's best guy we said was Chris Livingston, and then Ryan Rollins, and then some way down there, Marion Beauchamp, who's been a complete bust. If you compare them to Boston, Boston had Springer, Kita, Ramsey, Tilly, Davison. They had a much better group. And then the Knicks with Kolek, Jokibitis, Jacob Toppin, Dwayne Washington, Damian Ball, and then Pacome Dadier and Scap and Sev, really a much better group than what you have here. But you do have some guys here. You do have some guys. I would say, if we're going to say who's the all-around best, if we had to compare them with the entire league of all the four teams that we've gone through so far, I would say that Imani Bates is toast. He doesn't have enough. He has talent that he's too good for the G League, but he's not good enough to really make a difference in the NBA. So I would say Imani Bates doesn't quite have it. Jalen Tyson, I think the jury is out. He needs to go to the G League for a year. He's not ready for the NBA. He needs to prove himself, and then he'll come to the NBA. The interesting guy, in my opinion, is Luke Travers. I think he is a guy who is going to or could be on an NBA team because he doesn't need the ball and he's solid at everything he does. A team to trust him and put him out there as a bench guy, a guy who's going to come in garbage time, a guy who is going to give your other power forwards or your small forwards some time off. He can come in, he can rebound the ball, he can get some dunks, he can handle the ball a little bit late in the shot clock. If you need him to, he can do some outlet passing, and he's an all-around solid player. So I would drop him into our discussion about the overall rankings of players who could actually make something of themselves. And I don't think Darius Brown Jr. is too crazy far away. I don't think he's quite enough to make the list with guys that we've mentioned, like Tyler Kolek and Jokibitis and Springer and Kita from the Celtics. I don't think he's quite on that level where you could actually expect something of him per se. But I do think Hunter Couture, you can expect him to play a role in the NBA because he has the skill set which every team needs. You need a guy who can come into the game and reliably hit three-pointers, and that's really what he does. If he could get more shots up, it would probably behoove him to do so. I don't know if he's going to get the chance right now. We're not going to say he's one of the top rookies, one of the top guys in the G League, but he has a chance. And Pete Nance also has a chance of making an NBA roster because the bar is just lower for big men. If you have a big body, there's every team in the league needs more big bodies who are good. And Pete Nance can also stretch it out to three-point territory like he did when they played the Lakers and they won. He had a stretch where he hit a bunch of shots in a row, 3 or 4 shots in a row. Some at the hoop, a couple from three, and that made a big difference in why they won that game. Or why they almost won the game. I believe the Lakers came back in the end and Dalton Connect ended up hitting a couple of foul shots and put them ahead for good. But Pete Nance has a shot at the NBA. Craig Porter Jr., I would say ultimately he's going to be a G Leaguer for the rest of his career. I don't think he really has enough talent to make it. But out of this team, I would say Imani Bates is not going to make it. Jalen Tyson has a chance. And then Travers, Darius Brown Jr., and Hunter Couture and Pete Nance, they have a shot. All of them have a shot. I would say Luke Travers probably the best potential NBA player on this team. That's what I would say. I don't know if a team is going to take a chance on him because he's not like mega interesting. He sort of is glue guy type. He's a wing. You want a 3-and-D. He's not quite 3-and-D. He's more of like good passer, good hands, good around the basket. So he's less the 3-and-D. He's more so the power forward type. I don't know if teams are gonna trust him with that. If they do, I think he could potentially give a team some good minutes, but it's tough. It's gonna be tough because he's not like KCP. He's not gonna step into the game, play good defense, run the floor, and hit three-pointers. He's more so gonna be more similar to Kevin Love, but with a little bit less size than Kevin Love. He's gonna be Kevin Love without the post moves of Kevin Love. Not as good a three-point shooter as Kevin Love. He's kind of a baby version of that. So will teams trust him? Will teams want an old school player like him? I don't know, but I think I would put the running tally of summer leaguers. I would say Tyler Kolek, number 1. And again, we've only gone through the Celtics, Knicks, Bucks, and Cavaliers. I would say Tyler Kolek, number 1. Then I would go Springer from the Celtics, number 2. I would go Kita from the Celtics, number 3. Jokibitis from the Knicks, number 4. And then we'll go Luke Travers at number 5. And he's not going to ultimately make it. There's going to be many, many more guys who are going to supplant several of the guys on this list so far. But as of now, a running tally, 5 players through 4 teams. That's who we're going to have on this list right now. And that takes us through 4 teams. You've got a bit of a taste of what some of the really good summer league teams look like, what some of the promising teams look like, and you've got a taste of what a really horrible team looks like the Milwaukee Bucks and the horrible G League program. And then you've got a taste of somewhere in the middle with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I think that we're still going to see some teams to come that are going to be better than anyone we've talked about. I think there's going to be, I don't know if anyone's going to be worse than the Milwaukee Bucks, but we're going to get to it in all of our coverage. We're going to have 30 episodes of this. This is the 4th one. As always, we're your source for a great time every time. And until next time, we are out.